I'm Martin Hash, author of Animator Apprentice. I'm also the advertising agency, the manual writer, the janitor, and the president. And I'll tell you, I do a lot more janitoring than I do presidency. In fact, my office is out there in the garage. Now we're going to do this tape because a tape is a lot easier to understand than that manual. Now that's not because I'm a poor manual writer. That's because, that might be it, but the real reason is this is a tough subject. This is a whole new concept in computer animation, something you've never seen before. In fact, when you finally learn it, you'll say, that was easy. And you should not allow something as trivial as a manual to keep you from doing your best and be most creative in your animations. To begin, I'm going to say that this videotape is done in my front room. And it's not even approaching professional quality. But you asked for it, and you get it. Now, I put on this suit, and I shaved. That ought to be enough as far as quality goes. In fact, let's dispense with the suit right now and get right down to the brass tacks. Okay. Computer animation. Well, let's first divide the program Animator Apprentice into the three basic parts. There's the object editor, the scene editor, and the renderer displayer. Now, if you're familiar with the modules, the scene editor consists of character, action, director, and rehearsal. The object editor consists of sculpt, and the renderer displayer is record and display. Now, we're going to try to outline each of these packages individually as a concept before we get into the technical details, because you have to understand what the concepts are behind this technique before you can really put it to the test. Now, to begin, an object editor, there's a lot of packages that have one, but not all of them. An object editor is how you create the 3D representation of the objects. Now, they have things called splines, polygonal meshes, particle theory, all kinds of things. I particularly use what's called explicit object representation, and it allows me to texture map or surface map a picture of you, for example, onto a blank shape, which I'll call your head. Now, the renderer displayer is the easiest part, of course. That's simply where you say, computer, record this piece of animation, you go away, you come back the next day, you put the display on, and it plays back for you. The scene editor, and that's where the meat of Animator Apprentice really lies. And that is where it and you, as an owner, have more advantage over any other animation package. A scene editor allows you to be an animator with a computer. A computer should be a tool to the animator. It should be a valve to let you vent your creative abilities. It should not be an end unto itself. A scene editor, if you think about it, if I was an animator, I'm an animator. I go out and I watch some guy walking down the street. I might even videotape it. Videotape this guy walking down the street. Then I go back and I put the videotape in my video recorder, and I step through each frame and I watch how the arm moves up, how the arm moves down. I can even count the frames. Let me see. It goes up for 4 frames, it pauses for a frame, goes back for 8 frames. I divide my arm up into the parts that move at each of the joints. Got my upper arm, my forearm, my thighs, my calves, etc., etc. Now, as an animator, I become quite proficient at saying, let me see, the arm goes in about this much. That might be 15 degrees, but let's not talk about too much mathematics at this point. My arm goes in about this much, it goes out about that much, does this about that much. I may not even be an artist. I may just be an animator. Now, through years of learning, I know that each piece of animation, I take this Mickey Mouse character, I take this Donald Duck character, I can make them walk knowing my theory of how people walk. Look at a Muybridge book of how the fluid motion of man or how a horse walks. All of these things, they're a concept. You get to know how a horse walks. You get to know how a man walks. And you as an animator can make anything walk. Now the artist who's going to create these characters, if they're not an animator, they can't do animation. And you as an animator, when you retire, you cannot pass all your previous life's work onto your progeny, whoever's going to follow after you. What you learn is in your head. That's a traditional method. An animator, he has to animate each individual walking character because of his knowledge of walking. Now, wouldn't it be nice if after I got a character walking, let's say a fat character, the way he walks, after I got a fat character to walk, wouldn't that be nice if I could draw another character who happened to be fat, and I could have him walk the same way and it'd be mechanical? I'd just apply my creativity, which I did 2 years ago to make that fat man walk, mechanically to this fat man that I created today. In fact, if I was an animator, I could put all of these actions like walking and eating and talking, saying vowel sounds, saying consonant sounds, all these kinds of things, and put those away in a library, and an artist who doesn't know anything about animation, he could go to the library and pick out the actions that he'd want his character to do. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be easy? That is what a scene editor does, and that is what makes Animator Apprentice so powerful. The walks, the talks, the opening the refrigerator door, the things that you create today, you can use 2 years from now. In fact, you can string these things together at any speed, at any direction, all these kinds of things, and the same basic walks fit. Now you might need 6 or 8 different walks. You might need a fat man walk. You might need a woman walk. You might need some guy who bounces when he walks. You might need 6 or 8 of these different kinds of walks. But once you have the walk defined for a biped, that's the optional word here, biped, a biped, how you divide up into your movable parts, what your fundamental segments are, where your pivots are. All your characters that are bipeds are going to use that library of actions for bipeds. And you might have a library of actions for quadrupeds, like horses and dogs, or some kind of character from Mars. I can't even begin to explore all of the things that you can put in these libraries, but I can say that the power here is that once you have figured out how that one character walks, all your characters can walk. That is powerful. Animator Apprentice is a living program. A living program in the fact that I'm working on it constantly, adding new features, correcting bugs, the bad word, thinking of new techniques. You call in, you have things you want me to try, I put them in there. When I say living, I mean if I can't come up with some new feature every month and contact you with the newsletter and say, hey, why don't you get this new update, then I'm not doing my job, because we are right at the beginning of computer animation. You as a consumer to be able to buy this program here in 1987 is unimaginable. Who knows where we are going to be in 1990? I have to keep up to date. I have to keep you with the newest techniques that I've come up with or read in the literature, or whatever happens to be the newest rage. I have to keep adding those in Animator Apprentice to keep it alive, to keep it living. Talk about the object editor for a moment. Sculpt. Sculpt is tough. Now, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible, and I'm constantly coming up with new techniques and new things to do and ways to make the old things easier. But still, it's a tough program. And I say it's tough, but I don't want to scare you out. I want you to know that you're not the only one who's having problems. But once you get into it, it's easy. In fact, it gets so repetitive that you wonder why I did it this way, because it takes so much longer. Well, it's kind of a trade-off. When you're new, you need the ease, you need the menus, you need all this kind of frou-frou-y, hold your hand stuff. As you get better and more proficient, then you don't want all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm going to try to handle that in different kinds of ways, but I just want you to know that I know where you're at. Let's talk about what it's doing. What is Sculpt doing? Well, let's say we take the front and side silhouette of a segment. Remember, I called a segment, those are the forearm, the upper arm, all that kind of thing. Take the front and the side of a segment. They're just blanks, so they're just black outlines. I call one of them visage and one of them profile. I call them into the Sculpt program, the Sculpt module. The Sculpt module takes those two segments, those two 2D segments, and turns them into a single 3D blank or part. Okay? And the way it does that is it represents that segment as a series of slices. Just like a CAT scanner. Do you know how a CAT scanner works? You have a person and you take them to the hospital and they put them on this big table and it runs them through this big machine, and that machine takes an X-ray of each slice of that person and puts them all back together again. Well, that's how Sculpt works, exactly like that. It's a bunch of slices, like a loaf of bread, that it happens to be hollow, that are all stacked up, and they're just a black shape. Well, once you have that shape, and this is why I picked this technique, I can take a real detailed view, maybe which is the DigiView or the D-Paint or some other kind of IFF compatible program. I could take a front view and a back view, and I could map, I could put those colors on my black blank, segment blank, and I could make it just as detailed as I want. So I could take a segment that's shaped like my head, and I could take a picture of me and stick it right on there, and you would recognize that as me when that was rendered. Now, there's a lot of difficulties here. There's a lot of, you know, oh, so, we're not quite right. But there's also enough of trade-off between being quite right and being fast that you're going to enjoy it. And you're going to learn the tricks of the trade just like I have. You can't even imagine what I went through. I didn't even know where I started from. There was nobody for me to ask. I came up with this technique, I call it a hashnik, all on my little lonesome. And I'm sorry if it looks like that, but I came up with this thing, and as I went along, I kept thinking, oh, this will never work. Oh, we're all going to die. You know, it just was impossible. There was just no other way this was going to work. But I just kept, you know, on Sunday when the wife's at church, I'd hit that a little bit more, and I'd get a little bit more, and I'd still think it was impossible. Finally, a glimmer of light started shining through, and I thought, you know, this might actually work. And when I finally had my head and had me walking around, I was in business. Now, I've taken this technique down to, and talked to Bill Hahn of Hanna-Barbera, and I've talked to other very influential people. Now, of course, none of them could see the final product like I could. I might be a dreamer, but then again, they didn't see where it is today or where it's going to be 3 months from now. Remember, this is a living program. It just keeps getting bigger and better and best. We're going to talk about the object editor, which is Sculpt. And Sculpt has, as an integral part, IFF editors like some kind of generator like DigiPaint or an editor like D-Paint. And we're gonna make a couple of simple maps with D-Paint 2 so that you can get an understanding of what we're doing. Okay, 320 by 200, that's us. 32 colors. Okay, the very first thing that we're going to have to do is make this black background here, instead of being color number 0, we want to make it register number 1. So first let's click it, and then click it with our right mouse button, and then clear. Okay, now that's because all maps and everything for Sculpt need register number 1, which is right below register 0, to be the background. So let's make something easy. How about an oval? Right, this is the oval gadget here, and I'm just gonna, let's turn on coordinates. That's up there in the right hand corner, and 128, 100, and draw us an oval. Stretch it up, click it again, it's there. And let's fill it. Okay, we can fill it with black. We can change that to black. It really doesn't make any difference what the color of the oval is. On a matte disc. Okay, we'll call it oval dash, let me see, it's a visage and a profile, and it's not a top, it's not a front, so we'll just go ahead and save that. We're going to use the same picture here for both the front and the top, front and the profile. We're going to use the same picture here for the front and the profile. Okay, what are the important parts are? Dark, background is color 1. Now, if we had wanted to make a matte, we could fill this oval, and let's say we want to do a front, we could draw, let's draw some eyes on here. Well, I'm really taking my time, aren't I? This is how quick it can be. It doesn't have to be long. And we'll put a big smiley mouth. There's a dumb-looking guy. Alright, we're going to put that on the front of our oval when we're done. So we're going to call that front. We're not going to have a back. Now this could have been just as easy a digiview picture, but there are things you have to watch out for. Remember, we are using 32 colors. You could use less. Alright, we're going to quit sculpt right here, the two faces. I'm going to put a matte disc in. Okay, these are the menus. We have storage, operators, and shape. Now storage has matte, where you can put the front, top, back, bottom, left, right. Now the reason there's 3 of these is because there are 3 bitmaps or areas where you can put a matte. And the front, top go into one area, back, bottom go into another area, and left, right go into the third. You also, as this is a secondary item, visage, front, top also will contain visage, and left, right will also contain profile. So let's go ahead and recall the front. So you can mat a top mat onto a segment after you create it, or a left or a right, but you can only auto shape with a profile and a front. So let's find our oval visage. And there it is, and it's created it 1/4 size so we can fit it all on the screen here. And let's get the right view, which just happens to be the same for an oval since it's such a trivial. If this had been a more complicated shape, like a head, the profile is going to be different. Okay. Alright, now, these vertical lines are our coordinate markers, and this represents the front, and so this is the x-coordinate. Notice how the numbers change there under coordinate. And this is the depth, or z-coordinate. See how the numbers change. And then, if you select slice here, then you can move around the y-coordinate. See how it's changing? And we're going to put it right there. And I have to hit the space bar to get out of slicing. I can also hit the up and down arrow keys to control slice. And I can also, if I put the arrow in the profile area, then when I hit the left and right keys, I adjust that. If I move the arrow over to the visage area and I hit the left and right arrow keys, I can adjust the x-coordinate. Now we're going to first select a pivot, where this is going to pivot around. It's going to pivot right around its center. Wherever I put these axes, that's where the pivot's going to be. And see here, it says coordinates. It's 130, 97, 98. So let's put it at 128 and 100, because that's where we centered it up at in D-Paint. And we already have the Y set at 97. And then I just go up here and I select pivot, and there the coordinate gets transferred to pivot. Now I can move coordinate around and pivot's left alone, but now pivot's done. All segments need to have a pivot. Now let's auto shape this, because that's what everybody wants to do. First, let's put the slice at the very top, like this. Alright, now we hit the space bar to get out of that. Let's go to Auto Sculpt, Circular. We're going to make a circular kind of fitting circles that fit this. Auto Sculpt Circular. Now we pull down the slice. We can put it anywhere we want. We can auto sculpt just as little or as much as we want. Let's auto sculpt to here. Okay, I hit the space bar, and then the axes go away, those vertical lines and everything, while it is auto sculpting, and we just sit here and wait. It's not a long wait. There are three parts of auto shaping. There's auto sculpt, which draws either a circular or a square box to fit the profile. See, it takes the extents here from the left to the right on the front and the left to the right on the profile, and it fits a circle or a square depending on what you select to fit those extents. Then there is fitting. You use that word a lot, don't we? And that is, you draw an irregular slice to begin with. It doesn't have to be irregular, but normally that's what you would draw. And then it works just like auto sculpt. It uses the extents, just like I just explained, and it fits that irregular slice into the shapes specified by what the extents are. Okay, now we're done auto sculpting. And I can tell because I can see the slice right here. That's the last slice that it drew. Another thing I'm going to want to do is to, well, let's just go and use fit. Okay, the way you use fit is at the slice I'm going to start with, and we're going to adjust it. Notice how I'm moving the bone box, the zoom box. I move it right there, so I want to see that. We're going to zoom in on the front of the slice. Let's leave the very tip here so we know how far out we can go to stay within the constraints of our profile. Let's erase it. I'm depressing the right mouse button. Now I can freehand draw some kind of thing. I can use the line gadget. I can use the curve gadget. Let's go back and fill in these holes. And let's fill in this last hole here. And we can see right there that I exceeded how far out we could go. So let's do that. And erase that little dot. And now we have to save slides. This is very important. You have to save our changes. Okay, now let's go ahead and fit. Select fit. I pull this down about there. I hit the space bar. Now while it's operating, I'll pause. Okay, that took a minute or so, and it's back. As you can see, what has happened is it's shrunk that big slice into progressively smaller slices. I'm hitting the up arrow key and the down arrow key for you to see how they're getting bigger and bigger. See that? Smaller and smaller and smaller. And then finally you get to where there's nothing. So let's extrude the rest of this. We might as well use all three of the auto shaping features. We extrude, and we move down to about the bottom slice, and hit the space bar. And now the extrusion is going on. Notice that the lines on the screen have gone away while it's extruding. They'll come back when it's over with. Okay, let's go ahead and look at a front view, what we have so far. We say touch up, front. And this is just going to be a blank, still going to be black. We can see the extrusion. Extrusion doesn't change its diameter. And then pretty soon, there we go. There's the fit. It does change diameter. And it's going on up. And then pretty soon will be the auto sculpt. So we've pretty much distorted what that oval looked like, but we can take a look at it. We can also touch up top, and we'll see it draw each of the slices. Okay, there's the bottom slice, and since it's extruded, all the slices are laying on top of each other. And there we go. We start to see the changes due to, that's kind of a neat look, isn't it? The changes due to the fitting, and then we'll start seeing some circles here pretty soon. There they are, and they're created with auto. So we've got an incredibly complex shape here, generated with hardly any effort that no other package could do at all, this kind of easiness. We see we have a lot of gaps though. We're going to talk about those gaps right now. What a nice pattern. The way you take care of gaps is first you find the bottom slice, which we have here. Okay, we just filled the slice. We can say save slice. Come back down, we see that it's filled. Okay, and there's a crosshair in there. It's hard to see that crosshair on this background. Let's go ahead and hit the F1 key and change that crosshair color. Alright, there we go. See, now it's nice and purple. Okay, let's go ahead, and this is called fill gaps, one of those gaps that we've seen. I select fill gaps, I pull the slice up, I hit the space bar. Now, it took a little while to auto fill gaps, and we just paused over the top of that. Let's do one other thing. Let's fill this top slice so that it's totally enclosed. We have to say save slice. Okay. Now let's look and see what fill gaps did. We say touch up top. Remember all those holes, those patterns? Now as we watch it, we see that there are no holes. The entire blank, segment blank, is filled clear to the inside. So if this is a water balloon, it doesn't have any leaks in it. Now we'll know that it's through rendering this into the touch-up screen when the box appears. See, there's the box appeared, and we'll look at that in just a minute. Hit the return key to get out of this. Let's copy it. So we say copy reference. We're on 52. Let's copy reference number 100. Okay, notice how it's drawn in red. Now I could use this as an example. I might say, well, I want to, this is really an extreme, I want to follow this along. Okay, and erase this. And say save slice. Now, see that little piece was added. And we can always get it back by copy, say we copy reference number 51, which is probably about the same. And we can just, see I'm holding down the left mouse button just to draw a tool, and the right mouse button erases. So that's what reference copying is for. It's very, very useful. You can use reference, or you can copy permanent. If you copy permanent, that'll be drawn into that area in the draw color. For example, I can say copy 100 again. Notice how it is, see? Now if I say save slice, there. Now if I want to get rid of it, I can clear. It's not cleared yet. You have to say save slice. I can clear. Then I can say copy permanent 51, which we knew was about the same, and say save slice. Now, see that? That was very quick. That's the tools there. We've looked at fit, extrude, auto sculpt, fill gaps, clear, copy, save slice. We haven't looked at point yet. Let's do that. Let's say that I wanted to find a particular feature on this object so that I can connect to it. So I move this out, and I move that. Let's say that's the feature right there. And notice how the crosshair is moving around? That crosshair, when I say point, little dot will draw there. I can zoom in on it, and I can put a little doodad right there to go out to that point. Say save slice. I always have to say save slice. See, now it's there permanently. That's what point's for. Sometimes when you don't want to auto shape and you have to freehand draw something, you can use point to line up particular features and then put the zoom box over them and use those features maybe with the curve fit. Usually want to keep this all filled up so that the filled gaps works just fine. So we do erase all of this extra stuff here. Okay, slice. We're really turning this into something strange. Okay, now strike. What does strike do? Well, I'll show you what strike does. Let's see, we want to eliminate the middle of this. So we move the slice up, then we say strike. We move it up, space bar, there. Now what has happened? Let's look at a front view. Touch up front, and when it draws this in there, we'll see exactly what happened. So there's the extruded part, right there. And there's some little doodad that we added. And this here must have been fit. And there, it struck out that section. And that's what strike is used for. I just zoomed in on it. I could select a color. I could draw it right on there. Hit spacebar again. It's on there. That brings us to matting. We've looked at everything in this menu. Let's go. We've looked at slice, pivot. We haven't really used touched up, even though we've looked into it. And opaque and finish. Okay, to do a surface map, first we call up the map we want. Now we have a mat here because we drew, remember that squirrely little face? And we're going to put that squirrely little face onto what used to be an oval, but we have pretty much changed it. But we're going to go ahead and mat it anyway. So we get the front, put it in the front area. Remember, we have a front area, we have a back area, and we have a profile area. There it is. And all I have to do is say texture front. And then the crosshairs will go away until the texturing is done. And then let's look at touch front. And we can see what happened. Now near the bottom here, there was no texturing because the segment was actually larger than the mat. But we did that on purpose when we used extrude. And we can see that it's starting to fit. And the little doodad that we drew on there before didn't get textured over. And there's the front. Okay? Now we can go over here and we can put some veins in the eyes. Okay, hit the return key to get out, and let's look at a touch-up right view. You're going to see something that's very important. As it textured, things don't fit. You mat something that's 2D onto a 3D shape, it doesn't quite fit, as you can see all those black spaces there. Now, the easiest way to take care of those spaces is, now that you see them, is to hit the return key to get out, is where you're going to finish. We're going to use a heuristic to try to take the colors and fill in the black spots. Okay, let's look at the touch-up right now. And we can see that all of those black spots were filled in. And there will be an important item which we're going to talk about. Notice this line right here. This line, it's black behind that, and it's finished ahead of that. Now that is controlled by this line right here. I could have finished to there. I could have finished to there. I could finish all the way back. In fact, let's do that. Let's finish front back. And now let's touch up right and see what happened. And down here at the bottom where the mat didn't quite fit, you see this black. That's blank. And then the color got transferred where it could. And then up here higher where it matched, notice how there was an eye put on the front and an eye put on the back. It's a mirror image. So one mat covered this entire segment. It looks kind of strange. Okay, you can do the same thing. You can finish top bottom if you had a top mat, or left right. You got to be careful with top bottom and left right, but you can do it like if you're doing a building. Just make sure that all your coordinates are going to line up in D-Paint. And for left right, you use the X coordinate to say how far you want to finish, and for top bottom use the slice to decide what you want to finish. Okay? Now opaque takes everything away. So if we touch up front, we'll see that it is now a blank segment again. You're going to use opaque all the time when you take a segment out of your library and you want to put a new mat on it. The first thing you do is you opaque it, because if there's any old color there, nothing will be transferred. You opaque it, and then you bring your new mat in with the mat menu item, and then you texture it on. You noticed how quickly this works. This is all extremely fast. You can knock off some segments just faster than you can imagine. Now there are a couple things, like when you're trying to line up eyelids and lips and all that kind of thing, that you have a tendency to go back and forth, but those are difficult. Something like this is trivial, and once I do those eyelids and heads and get some blank segments that I can remat onto, then I can have a library of shapes that I already spent the time. So even though this is the most artistically demanding and time demanding of all the modules, it has the most payback, because once it's done, these segments are finished, and the texture mapping takes no time at all. Now we've looked at everything: finishing, opaquing, touch up. Remember, we looked at touched up. Let's just do it one more time. Let's texture. Let's go ahead and texture front. And just one more time, I'm going to show you this touch up. There is something important that I haven't mentioned, is that the back map has to be a mirror image of what you really want on there. And that is so that you don't have to line things up perfectly. But you do have to, if you were going to write text, it would have to be mirror imaged. Now in D-Paint, you can flip things over as mirrors. I don't know how well that will do, but if I say touch up front, the same thing with the right image and the bottom. Bottom, right, and no, bottom, left, and back are all have to be mirrors. Most of the time it just won't come up, except if you put like the number 5 on some guy's back. You'll either have to hand paint it on, right, like this, or in your mat in D-Paint, you have to put the 5 in as a mirror image. Alright, we already showed how you draw the eyes. I just want to show it again because I want to reinforce that. And also this column thing here. What this column does, see if I put some draw color in here. Remember, that's draw color, color 0. Color 1 is background color. See this pink? Well, I guess flesh. Now, column says, when it's turned on, I say, copy, point at the one I want to copy, point at the one I want to copy from, and click the right mouse button, and where I want to copy to, and print the left mouse button. Okay? I can copy from, to, and I can turn column off, and then you're just back to plain old painting. Now, I can click the right mouse button and pick any color and paint with that. So I can right mouse button, paint with black. Right mouse button, left mouse button paints this. Right mouse button. This really helps speed things up. And now that's on there permanent. Hit the return key to get out. So we've now looked at all the features, and it was very quick. It was easy. Remember to put the pivot in, and we can save. I don't know why we say the silly face. Okay, I'm not going to save it, and quit. I have to try to explain to you what the character module does without any kind of graphics. I'm just going to have to use my body. Now the way I represent it on the screen, you know, with those little blocks and all that kind of thing, the little boxes with arrows, I mean, that is not the best way in the world, but it was that or nothing. I couldn't come up with anything else that worked. Are you familiar with genealogy? You know, genealogy, your family tree, who your dad is, who your granddad is, who your kids are, all that kind of thing? Well, that's exactly how a character is developed. Let me show you. If I'm standing here and my butt moves, my whole body goes with it. Somebody picked me up by the butt, they could just move me around. Now, I call that the pelvis, for those of you with ears that can't quite handle the word butt. I call that pelvis in the program, but that's an inside joke. When I move my pelvis, my whole body moves. In contrast, when I move this arm, my hand moves, my fingertips move, my forearm moves, but the rest of me doesn't move. I move my torso, my head moves, both arms move, everything that's connected to the arms move, but my pelvis doesn't necessarily move, and my legs certainly don't move. I move one leg. Are you getting the picture here? These things are related to each other in that it's kind of like you have a patriarch the great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Adam, who knows, that everybody's related to. When Adam moves, everyone moves. Adam has some children, progeny, the word progeny, children. Torso, both thighs. When this torso and these thighs are hooked to the pelvis, okay? Hooked to the torso is this arm and the head. So these two shoulders and this head are progeny of the torso. Now they're all siblings to each other. They're all children of each other, siblings. They're all related. So you have this kind of relation scheme, and what the boxes are is the very top box, that's the progeny. When it moves, everybody moves. And you can follow the arrows on down, and you can see who's going to move by who's higher up in the tree there, who's higher up in the family tree, because the genetic traits of the children come from their parents. But the genetic traits of the siblings, you know, your brothers and sisters, they're not necessarily coming from you, they're coming from your parents. So if you move, your kids don't move. My kids move, but you know how it is. So that's the theory behind character, is that we have a hierarchy, a genealogy of all these things. Now, it's tough. I'm not kidding you. When I was designing bipeds, I kept getting, you know, the leg bone connected to the chest bone. I don't know. I'd get my character moving. He'd really look torquey. So in character, I have all these editing features so that if you want to design your own character, something I haven't designed yet, I don't know what it is, some kind of automobile or, you know, something that I haven't designed yet, 5-armed man, you can use all those editing features and design one yourself. Or, and this is the one I suggest, you look into the library discs and you see if I've already got a biped, or I've already got a quadruped, or I've already got an airplane, and you use that as reference. And if you had to add a part or take away a part or any of those kinds of things, then that's what you do, using mine as a reference. Now I'm going to explain one thing here, and that is, if you make a genealogy, and it includes the little pinky, and your character only has 3 fingers, so he doesn't have a pinky, well, if you leave those bone boxes in there for the little pinky, and you just don't have anything to find for it, that's okay. That's okay. It'll just not draw. So if you use a biped that has more parts than you're used to, has a hat, has mustachios, has something that your character doesn't have, just leave them in there. They don't hurt anything. As long as you don't have segments defined for them, they won't be drawn. This makes the flexibility of having predefined characters more than you can stand, let me tell you. We're going to begin Apprentice. You can start from your own workbench version 1.2, or with the Apprentice disk, which is self-starting. You can work in a 1 megabyte Amiga with a single disk or 2 disk drives. We're working with an external disk drive here. Insert your Apprentice disk in the external drive. This is version 1.007 of Apprentice that we will be discussing. Open the Apprentice disk and listen to the incredibly noisy Amiga disks loading the incredibly slow Amiga icons. What we see here are the icons for the 7 modules that comprise Apprentice. The 7 modules in their entirety compose a scene editor, an object editor, and a renderer. These 4 modules right here, character, action, director, and rehearsal, comprise the scene editor. Sculpt is the object editor, and record and display are the renderer. We're going to start with character. Now, those are bone boxes we see connected together there. Bone boxes, that's my own word. They're boxes, and we're going to be defining bones. That's what I call the sticks of the stick man. Let's put a data disk. These are your library disks. Now, I'm going to be installing the data disk that comes with Apprentice that I send with it in the internal drive. If you had libraries, you would go through them and find the characters that you want, and it'd work just like this. You put the data disk in the drive. It lists everything that's a character on the disk. In this case, there's biped and head demo, which are the 2 that I include on the included data disk. Right now, we'll go back to those, but right now we're going to make our own. Now, remember I said that bones is my term for the sticks of the stick man. And what we're going to try to do is lay out a stick man. And remember, a stick man, it's like a family genealogy. And you start with the patriarch, and we're going to add the patriarch. That's your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Adam in this case. It doesn't really make any difference if we add him as a sibling or a progeny, since he is the first one. And we'll just type him in here. This is the pelvis on a biped. And it comes to the bone screen automatically, because you always have to define a bone. So when you add a sibling or a progeny, you're taken to the bone screen. Now, a bone we always define down its axis. So if this is a forearm, start the pivot. Notice that the coordinates are x, y, z, 0, 0, 0. That's always the pivot. We're looking at the back. That's so that the right side is equal to your right side. If I had made this the then, you'd constantly be saying, let me see, the right side is the other side of the screen, blah, 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 blah. As long as I make it the back, you just remember that if your right side is the same as the right on the screen. So let's start at the pivot, because a pelvis will start at its pivot and move down. Notice I can go anywhere, but it's very common and almost always the case that you will go down or up vertically when you're making a bone. That's because roll always occurs about the y-axis. And what we're doing here, since roll is always the first thing to occur, we are making the bone go right down the center of the pelvis. Right, bisect right down the center and go down. And this pelvis is going to be 34 long down, so that's minus 34. Notice how, as I move the cursor around, I see what position I'm at. I can go back and I can see that that is right there. That's the pivot at 0, 0, 0. Now that we have the bone defined, it goes to the place screen. Again, we're looking at the back. And this time as I move the cursor around, the coordinates do not change. Now if I push down on the left button, you see that? I put on the left button. Now the coordinates are changing. Now the pelvis always starts at 0, so we got to go back and find 0. Okay. We're up a little high. There we go. There we go. So the pelvis starts at 0. Now we have the pelvis in there. We can look at the info that we just entered. It says pelvis. It has no position. We'll see that on the next bone. And the extent goes from XYZ of 0, 0, 0 to XYZ of 0 minus 34, 0. Remember that minus 34 we put in there? So this is a straight line down. It has a scale factor 100%. We don't need to worry about that right now. Reflection, 100% diffuse reflection, and 0 specular. I always leave off specular because during the rendering stage, specular takes about twice as long to compute. And all it really does is add highlights. Now if you're doing something very machinery looking or very glossy, like a pool ball or something made out of metal, then you'd want to set your specular reflection to some value like 40 or 50 or maybe even 100. You can try your own values. In the Apprentice demo where all the letters spin around, it's set for 30 or 40%. Now to exit the info, you have to always select one of these boxes. See that orange? So I'm clicking in there and putting an orange box in those categories. You have to put that orange box someplace before you hit the return key. That's just an attribute of the Amiga. Now we've got the pelvis up there, and we're not going to save it yet. We're not going to quit. And the items are, we can cull it. Don't want to take it away. We'll go back to that. Or we can add, you always add progeny to the patriarch bone. You never add a sibling. We always add a progeny. And we're going to add, what's connected to your pelvis? Let me see, both of your thighs and your torso. So let's put our torso in here. Notice how I enabled the box with the pointer before I started typing in there. It takes me to the bone screen. See, if I hit the right mouse button, I see the top of this bone. And if I hit the left mouse button, I see the back of this bone. And if I hit the F1 key, I see the back. I hit the F2 key, I see the top. All right, that way I'm defining a three-dimensional bone. I'm not sure when you're going to use this. I use it occasionally. Let's just go back here and put in a decent bone. Let me see, a torso starts at where the pelvis pivot is, so let's go to 0. Okay, we got those two 0. We're getting X0 there. And then a torso goes up, and it's about 4 times the pivot, or the pelvis, so I don't know, 114 looks okay. Normally you would make sure all of these are consistent with your segments. Okay, now notice how I'm moving the torso around. I actually want it right there so it pivots, so the guy bends at the waist. We're still looking at the back. Alright, let's add a progeny to the torso. What connects to the torso? Let me see, the shoulders do. Alright, and now they're going to go down. Your shoulders go down. Remember, we're always making these verticals because we want them to swivel about their roll. Alright, now here's something interesting. Watch this. See, there's the torso. This is where I'm changing the position. I'm putting that shoulder, we're looking down from the back, so this is going to be the right shoulder. I'm moving it and where I want it to be on this bone figure. Let's look at the info on that. Notice this has a position now. It's over minus 28, and it's up 88, and it's 50 long. Okay, now we can go and look at that again. It says 28 and 88. See that? 28 at X, 88 Y. You don't really need to know that, but it's important for this next stage. See, we're going to add right there, we're going to add another progeny, which is going to be the forearm. And it's also going to go down. It's about the same length as the arm, as the shoulder. Minus 50. There we go. Now look at this. There it is, right there. And it's down 50, 56, 48, 52. Okay, you can only adjust by 4s here. But remember, the shoulder was 50 long. So if I go down to where the elbow is, that's about my 52, and X is 0. So even though I'm over to the right from the pelvis and everything, this position that we're looking up here always is respect to its parent. Boy, is this getting complicated, or what, huh? So look what we have so far. We have, as I click these bone boxes, they highlight, and they also list at the top of the screen who it is I'm looking at. And this is the family we have so far. We have the great-grandfather, the pelvis, the grandfather, the torso, the father, the shoulder, and the son, the forearm, and we could add a hand onto there. Anyone that's highlighted, that's who is what we're talking about at the time. So info on torso, when it's highlighted, is what we see. Let's add a sibling to the torso, which will be, what's connected to the torso? Or, no, it's not going to be connected. It's going to be a sibling of the torso, so in the same generation. Let me see, that would be the thigh. And the thigh goes down, it's about the same as an upper arm, minus 46, that's okay. And look what we're doing with it. We're putting in the right thigh because it's on the right hand side. We're moving it down, so it's not quite as far out as the shoulder is, but it is farther than the pelvis. All right, let's add a progeny to that, which would be the calf, and it's about the same length as the thigh. And we're going to do the same thing as we did with the forearm. You see our man's starting to be built here. This isn't really that difficult. I will say that I had a few problems to begin with, but I have all these tools so that if you screw up, so you can divorce. Let's say that we have this relationship wrong. I can divorce that off of there. See, now they've disconnected, and I can adopt it right there. I can say adopt either a sibling or a progeny. Okay, look at now I've adopted. I've got the thigh hooked onto the forearm. Let's just have a look and see what that looks like. It's kind of a strange looking duck there. You can do these kinds of things though. Let's divorce that off of there again and adopt it back to where it belongs. Adopt sibling. So you point at it, then you point at where you're going to adopt it. So now we have it back where it is. I can call an orphan. I can't call that guy right there. See, I have to call one that's an orphan. He doesn't have any children and he doesn't have any siblings, and he's gone now. I can look at the bone. Oops, I didn't have anything selected, so now I can look at the bone. And that's what the bone looks like. I could redefine right now if I want. I could use the F2 key and look at the top. Let me see, we're looking straight down a line, so all it is a dot. That makes sense. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. And I can hit the F1 key and go back to how it is. Hit the space bar to get out. Okay. So let's look at the biped after he's already designed. This is a fully designed biped. There's the pelvis, torso, both thighs. Now we could rename those to left and right thigh if we wanted to. Let me see, I'm just guessing that that's the left thigh. Let's take a look. We can go to the place, see if that one's going to be on the left-hand side. It is not. That was the right-hand thigh. So I'm going to have to rename it to right. We have covered almost all of character. Most of the time you're going to spin in character is just trying to figure out what all these relationships are. Now personally, once you have a class like bipeds, I just call up a biped figure and I change like left and right thigh as I need them. So this could be Smurf thigh, or this could be Mickey Mouse's thigh, or whatever, but I use this as an example because this class is already done. There's the head and the feet and the hands. Notice how I named them like that. I can look at any of the information. Like I said, you're going to be spending most of your time laying the characters out if it's a new one. And if it's not a new one, it's not a spaceship or airplane or something that's already been defined before, like a biped, then you just call one up that's a generic class and modify it to suit your needs. Let me see, we could place this forearm farther down. Well, that's a weird looking guy. And we could move his shoulder way out. See, we could modify this already defined biped as much as we want and rename it as much as we want. Let's rename that again. Info. Let's call this monkey. Monkey shoulder. Alright, you have to click it again to have it come up at the top. There you go, monkey shoulder. So, we've just now talked about character. That wasn't too difficult. We could save it. If it was a predefined one, it would be printed there. If it's not, we could say test, and we'd say OK. It would save over on the disk. If anything there was already named test, it would be overwritten, however, so you got to be careful. You also have to save before you quit, because this program isn't going to stop and query you. It used to have it stop and query you. I just got tired of that all the time. Remember I told you about the guy on the videotape that you taped and you get his actions down? Put those in libraries and use them again in the future? Well, action, I personally find, is the toughest of all these modules to use. It is not that tough, but it's because it's kind of mechanical to try to figure out. Let me see, there's 4 frames up and 6 frames down. It holds for 2 frames, and you got to add these things together. Luckily, I put an audition mode in there so you can check it out before you save it. You know what I mean? But once you get into the hang of it, I end up typing in the numbers. I don't even move the guy's arm around. I end up, typing in, go up 30 degrees. Now, don't let me say in 30 degrees scare you. I mean, the mathematics, I'm horrible in mathematics. I put them in there just for reference. But I got to the point where I got tired of moving the guy's arm around, and I just typed in 30 degrees. Now, I still had to move his arm around because sometimes I got minus 30 and plus 30 mixed up, but you know how it goes. As long as you can audition it, you're okay. That's the saving grace here. This program, all you have to do is audition it. If you don't like it, you can change it. Now, one thing about these actions is you put them in at some number of frames. Let's say you end up to take a full step. To take one full step, it takes 28 frames. Well, that's only a pseudo speed. That's kind of a reference speed. That step that you put in there is interpolative. That means you can make it longer or shorter, faster or slower is what I really mean. You can make it faster or slower with no problem at all, because you're saving the keyframes of the step, what the keyframes of the beginning and the end, and how many hold frames there are, and then it averages what it should have. The action module. Double-click action. It ought to ask me for the data disk here in a second. Unless I already have the data disk installed. Okay, first thing that action does is it looks on the data disk to see what characters you have, because you can only define actions for the characters that you have defined. Now I have a head defined, I have a biped defined. We've already looked at the biped, so since we're familiar with it, we'll call up the biped. Now I have previously defined an action called walk, and it shouldn't be called walk, it should be called step, because actually it's just one full step, left foot, right foot, which I call over and over again to get a walk out of that. Let's go ahead and call up walk so that we can get an idea of what this is going to do. Then we'll start an action from scratch. Now there's the character from the front. It always comes up from the front with the first frame of what a walk looks like. Now we can use this menu over here to look at any view. Let's look at the right. Okay, we can look at the left. We can look at the top. That's kind of obtuse. That'd be, sometimes you use it, sometimes you don't. The reason you have all these views is so that I can point with this pointer at any particular set. See, there's a forearm right there, and I just selected it. Notice how it highlighted? Well, I just positioned the pointer on the bone, and I clicked the left mouse button, and it highlighted, and it listed up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen the name of the segment that I collect. I use the F10 key. This is important. I can use the F10 key to cycle through all the bones of this character. Sometimes you just can't pick one because they're too close together. For example, I got an eye and an eyelid, and I just can't get that eyelid. I keep picking the eye. Well, I'll just pick whatever's quick, and then I'll just cycle through like I am. All right, now I'm back down to forearm again. Now, we have some numbers at the bottom of the screen. We have a number up in the corner. This number up in the corner is the frame number we're on. This is the very first frame of the forearm. This is what it looks like. At the bottom of the screen, we can see that the forearm in the very first frame has a tilt value of 15, a swivel value of 40. Now I can change that. See, you have a modify menu here. I can tweak. That's a nice name, isn't it? I can tweak. That's a swivel. As long as you depress the button, then the bone, the forearm, will follow it around, will move around. And if I let up, boop, it pops back to where it was. That allows me that I can click either button. See, now I got down the left mouse button and I'm adjusting tilt, which I could probably see from a better angle if I was looking from the front, for example. But this allows me, I don't know exactly what I want yet. I just start pushing on the buttons, and then I find the one that's moving like I want it to, and I hold it down, and then when I get it to where I want it, I hit the return key, and then I can, it stays at that position, and then I can adjust another angle, and I can look at it from the front, for example. Front, okay, I can tweak. Now this might be a better way to see tilt. Indeed it is. It's much better to see tilt. We'll just make tilt 9 degrees. Now the F1 key toggles the left mouse button between roll and tilt. So now if I hit the F1 key, I'm adjusting roll. If I hit it again, I adjust tilt, hit it again, adjust roll. It's hard to see roll because that's just spinning. When you spin a straight line about its center, it still looks like a straight line because it's passing down its length. So roll is used for something like the head, or even if you're turning the wrist, that's roll. Actually, roll is pretty important. There are a couple of terms that you're going to have to learn. Roll, tilt, and swivel. That's called rotation. Now, roll, in my definition, I don't know what your definition is, that's about the axis that, the y-axis that goes up through your head. If your head was designed as a vertical segment, and I roll my head like this. Similarly, I roll my arms, okay, rolling my arms, okay. Swivel is when I swivel about my x-axis, okay? That's when I move my arm up like this. That's a swivel. It's going around the x-axis through my torso. Okay, tilt, swiveling around my z-axis. Okay, this is tilt. Swivel. Roll. Okay? Now, I can still roll my arms even though they're tilted. The hierarchy is first you can roll, and you tilt, and then you can swivel. Alright, so you can just about create any actions you want using those three combinations. There's also scaling and translation. Now scaling is pretty simple. Scaling is just shrinking, or making something larger, shrinking, making something larger. And you can figure that out. I can't think of a part right now, but do you know what the term stretch and squeeze are in animation? When you stretch a body part and you stretch a body part and squeeze it depending on what they're doing? Well, you can do that with Animator Apprentice by using the scale. You could scale the forearm, you can squeeze it, then you can stretch it as he's trying to throw a baseball or something. Okay, now translation, this is important. Translation is the movement of something. It's not, look, it's not a scale, and it's not a rotation, it's a translation. Like when you walk, you kind of bounce up and down because your foot's moving your head up and down. See, that's a translation. And when I put a walk action in, I translate the pelvis up 5 or 10 pixels to get the bobbing, okay? Now translation, there's the problem with translation. If I design a character who walks, who's really tall, and I put his translation in as 50, let's say, and then I try to use that walk on a character who's really short, then he's gonna fly up off the ground when he takes a step. 50 is much too tall. So I scale the translation. Oh boy, let's mix our metaphors here. What I do in Animator Apprentice is whatever the size of the character's fundamental patriarch bone is, okay? So if he's a short man, he has a little short pelvis, and if he's a tall man, he has a real tall pelvis. Whatever the size of that patriarch bone is, when I define the action, I scale the new character's actions, the translations, to that. Is this coming out straight? I'm trying to say is, if you have a tall character or a small character, they can use the same walk because we scale their translations, which is the only thing that doesn't transmute. Oh, transmute, I throw another word at you. When you rotate 30 degrees, no matter whether you're tall or short, it rotates 30 degrees. When you scale something 15%, whether you're tall or short, it scales 15%. But when you translate something, if you're tall or short, it makes a difference. So use the patriarch bone to do your scaling of translation so that actions will fit across any size of character. Next big step here. That's the frame number up on the right. That's 1. We have all these commands in this modified menu. If you think about it, this is keyframe animation. Keyframe animation, you go to a particular frame, which I call, the extents. It swings up to 15 degrees, back down to 30 degrees. And the way you look at the keyframes is with forward. So I went 9 frames ahead. That must have been the next key on the forearm, and that's what it looks like. I can go forward again. That's 30. See up there in the right-hand corner. I can go backward, back to 9, backward, back to 1. I can first, I'm already up for the last one is number 29. Actually, the last one is always 1 more than the total number of frames defined for this action. That's because this is interpolated. And I don't want to get too technical, but if I'm taking a step and I defined it to take 8, I'm moving something 8, it actually gets to the endpoint on the 9th step. That's so stuff can cycle, so that you don't repeat the last frame and the first frame and look like there's a pause there. If you're going to cycle something, then you want the first frame to be the same as the last frame would have been, and that's why there's 29 here, even though the segment is only defined for 28. If I go first, I'm back at 1. I say forward, it takes me to 8. Now, it was probably defined, let's look at the action list. Yeah, see, there's 7, it's defined for 7. So there is a keyframe 7 frames away, and we just looked at it, it's straight up and down, and then it's going to hold 14 frames, as you can hear, and then it's going to move again for 14 frames. So let's go forward. Okay. Now, if we wanted to add another frame somewhere in the midst here, we could like go backwards to keyframe 8, and we could add, so we're going to add a 6 in there, and tweak. So at frame number 27, I'm just holding down the button until I find the one I want, which turns out to be the right button for swivel. Frame number 27, we're going to do that, and let's look at the action list. See, I added one in there for 6 for a total of 34. Okay, and I could add in the action list too. In fact, the way I usually do it is I take my action worksheet, which is in your manual and in the newsletter number 2, and I figure out how many frames each keyframe is going to be, and I put them in first. And then I go back and I tweak them. I just simply go find each of them, go one time, put it into tweak, tweak it how I want it from the side, and then I change the observation angle to the front, and I tweak it how I want it from the front. Keep hitting the space bar to get out until I have that all straightened out. So we can look at the info on that, and we get a lot of numbers that don't mean a whole lot. It's a bit easier just to look at the graphics. And we've tweaked, we've added, we've gone forward, backward, first, last. This concept of keyframing sometimes confuses people, and it is difficult to get started. I'll agree with that. But once you've done it, it's pretty first or second nature, maybe third or fourth nature. You just simply think about it. Let me see, I start my arm here and I move it forward and I do it about this fast, so I'm just going to give it 6 frames. You know, give everything kind of relational. You don't have to know. I just sometimes try 6, and I go back and audition it and see how it looks. You quit with that particular segment like this. Now nothing is highlighted. I can go ahead and pick something new. Notice how a whole series of things turn red. That's because it's the bone and all of its progeny. Not its siblings, but its progeny. Bone and all of its progeny and its sub-progeny and all of its great-great-great-great-grandchildren are all affected when I turn that bone. For example, if I tweak the torso, everything moves. Look at that. See, everything moves when you move your hips. That's why that happens. Quit. Now nothing is selected. Easement. Easement. This is acceleration. You can have no easement, which is really what I use, which is 0. Ease in, so it's going to slowly start to move and then speed up, speed up, speed up. Ease out means it's very, very quickly, then it's going to slow down, and then ease both. It's going to speed up, go as fast as it can, and slow down. So lots of things accelerate like this. You can think of a race car starting out at a starting line. It accelerates up to speed. That would be an ease in. An ease out is while it's braking. An ease both would be the entire race, accelerating, going to speed, and braking. Some actions look much more natural with easement, and you're just going to have to experiment with it. I sometimes like it, I sometimes don't. I have normally used no ease simply because I don't understand it as well. Now, the real heavy-duty, hardcore animators out there, they will probably use ease an awful lot. Normally you want the first frame and the last frame to be the same. Now I have tilt 15, swivel 84. Boy, I'd really have to change this. Tweak. I can say tilt 15, swivel 84. The reason you want them the same because this is a cycle after all, and we're cycling around, you know, from first frame to last frame, so you want them to be the same. Easement, you know, we can audition the action that we just put in there and see all the keyframes for all the segments with the audition. And it looks like there's 28. Takes a moment for the computer to crunch so that we can play this audition back in real time. So we'll wait here for the auditioning. I'd like to speed this up if I can ever figure out how. Okay, that's a pretty nice walk there from the side. Now I can use the left mouse button to stop it and click one frame at a time. Notice the frame number in the upper right hand corner is changing. I use the right mouse button to start it up again. The function keys along the top of the computer adjust the speed. Right now it's at 12 frames per second. I can make it at 15 frames per second with the F4 key, 20 frames per second with the F3 key. I don't know if I can get it any faster. Let's try 30 frames per second with the F2. Indeed, it does go faster. That's 30 frames per second. We can come down at the very end at F10 and try 4 or 5 frames a second. And that's how that looks. Time through here, I can hit the left mouse button and stop it, and then click through. The right mouse button starts it again. I can hit any of the function keys to get it going at any speed again. And you can look at your manual to see what functions control what speed. The space bar stops auditioning. Now I can audition from any view. Let's look at front view. Let's run through. I start audition with the man in the front, biped in the front. I call him a man because the shoulder spacing is quite wide, but a biped could be a woman easily. We could lengthen the legs, narrow the shoulders, use different segments for the body parts. That's why it's called a biped. That's kind of generic. There, now it's started up. This is indeed how a man walks. Look at that. The guy's really throwing his weight into it. Looks quite natural. I like it. Let's try it at a faster speed. Now he's in a hurry. Got to get to work on time. Slower speed to take a look at it. I can click through the frames. Indeed, that's a nice looking walk. The recall menu item allows you to build library disks, because let's say you have a character from one disk and actions from another. First you'd load the character, then you'd insert a new library disk, and you'd see what was on it. Like, it could be opening the refrigerator door or something. You select it, and you would load it up. Then you'd take out that library disk and put in another one, and then save your new one. And now I save. It asks how many frames I want this action to take. Normally I just select the default, which is 30 in this case, and then I just use the name. Could be open refrigerator door, and I have to. Then I'm just going to cancel out. I'm not going to this. But that's how you build library disks. That's what recall is for. Save we've looked at. Quit. Hard on the director module. I'm going to loosen this tie up, because this module has a lot of speaking going with it. Now, there's also a lot of technical stuff, but the speaking, just about dry my throat here. Director. What does director do? Well, you're the director. You're the director of a play, and you have a stage that your character is going to be standing on. Now, this is a kind of an unconventional stage because it rotates around and rolls and all this kind of stuff in 3 space. Okay, so you can turn it up like that. In fact, we'll talk about why that's important in just a second. Now, you're the director and you're setting out in the audience. And you can control where the camera is going to be out in the audience and what path it's going to follow. And how fast it's going to go on that path. You can just about say anything you want about the camera. You can say what the focal length of the lens is. That'll give you perspective, depth of field. It'll say where the light source is located. I'm sorry, there's only one light source. We'll work on that. And same thing with color of light source. I'm sure that's going to be coming around. Now, since you're out there, you got that camera, and you're the director, and you have a play you're going to do, and you say who your actor is going to be, who the character is going to be. You select those, and you select what their skits are going to be. You string together a bunch of actions, and for example, if they're saying a script, you could put vowel sounds and consonant, lip shapes together and string them together so that you could sync up a soundtrack to it. Where the characters are going to walk around in the stage, where they're going to start on the stage, what way they're going to be positioned on the stage. Okay, this is all the kinds of things that your director is going to do. It's not really that hard. That's what the nodes on the screen are for. That's why it's graphic. That's why this program is so graphical. Let's start the director module. This is the module you're going to spend a lot of time in, because once you've libraried a bunch of actions and characters and figures, you're going to find yourself using the same characters and figures over and over and over in different vignettes. So I put together a half-hour piece of animation. It's only going to have a certain cast and skit,
and then all the rest will be how the camera's going to move, where the characters are going to stand. That's what the director module really is. It's the core of the entire scene editor. You're the director of a play, and you have a stage in front of you. The stage is rather peculiar because it can rotate around in 3 space. It can tilt, it can roll, and nobody falls off of it. The choreography we're going to look at is again on the data disk included in the Apprentice package, and it's walk. And let's talk about this, you as a director again. We're looking down at the top of the stage right now. And these white lines here, that I see, these diagonal right lines, that is the viewing plane of the camera. And the circles with the arrows and the white lines connecting them, that is one character, and the arrows point which direction this is facing, and the white lines show the path that that character is going to walk. So this character is going to start here, and it's going to walk along this line, and at the end of that time it's going to be pointing this direction, and it's going to walk along this line, and at the end of that time it's going to point this direction. Now I added this character, and I can make him walk anywhere I want. First, let's just adjust a node. I pointed a node, I hit the left mouse button. Up here at the top I see that the figure that I've selected is a biped, and we have X, Z locations in the stage, and roll. I don't really need to look at all these numbers, they're just there when you get used to them. I could just do it totally graphically. And I go up here where it says node, I'm going to modify, and now as I depress the left mouse button and move around, I'm adjusting how this character is going to walk on the stage. Now the right mouse button, it adjusts how he's going to face. See, he'd look kind of strange if he walked and turned that way and then went forward again, but I can do that. I can make him go anywhere I want. Now notice the roll value at the top of the screen, it's changing to reflect my chain here. Now I hit the space bar when I'm through adjusting. I can select another one. I can modify it, move it down. Okay, select another one, move it around over here, move it. Let's adjust the arrow on that. Okay, let's adjust the arrow on this one. All right, make it look natural. This character, he's really going to be going after it. Okay, and then I hit the space bar to quit modifying. Notice as I select these nodes that the numbers at the top of the screen are changing. Now the view plane, that shows you that this character is going to be totally on the screen during this entire move because none of these nodes fall outside of the view plane. If I did that, that character would start outside of the view plane. The view plane is perspective. Things get smaller as they get farther away, and you see more in your field of vision. That's what that view plane. Now we can change that view plane. We'll do that in just a moment. First, let's see if this is the top view of the stage. We can also change the view over here with that menu item, and we look at the front view. Now everybody's standing on level ground, and in this particular thing it's a little difficult to see what's going on because these people aren't jumping or hopping or flying. If I wanted to make them fly, I'd select modify, and now that character is going to fly right there during that node, but we probably don't want to do that, so let's put it back down. I select view to get back. Alright, let's add another character to the play. We say node. No, we say skit. We want to add a new character, not a new node. So we're going to add a new character. Say add. These are all the characters that are on my disk. There they are again, the traditional biped and head demo. Let's get another biped. It's going to load up. Alright, all the actions it could possibly be. Right now all that's on the disk is walk. And then the node will be placed. How many frames I want this walk to be. This is so that I can control how fast the walk is going to be. We put the walk in at 28 frames, but we can say we can have it walk at any speed, because when you design an action, the action is independent of the direction that it's pointing, and it's also independent of the speed. We put the walk in at 28 frames to take one full step, but we're going to play it back at 10 frames to make one full step. So this character, I'm moving him around now, is going to start right there, and then we're going to do that, and now we're going to add a node. Now I'm going to use an add node, and it's going to take 10 frames. These frames are absolute. whereas actions are relative. We'll talk about that a little bit. I added another node. I'm going to adjust it. Add. Okay. Let's adjust it so that the arrows follow the path. That's normally the best way to do it. Okay, now we have two characters. And we've added nodes and we have their paths. Let's look at what we have here. We have add a node. We could delete a node. That node I just added. Pop. Whatever happens to be selected, that's always the case. I could add a node right, for example. See? I could say add node. And stick it right in there. And adjust it. This is really, really easy. Well, you're just going to have to try it. Me showing you gives you the idea, but you can come in here and pop off some very, very quick animations if you already have some skits and characters defined. You can modify a node, which we've been doing by moving it around. We can look at the info about that node, scale value. This is so you can shrink characters, make them bigger, make them grow and shrink as they're going along. You can change their tilt and their swivel. We'll look at that in a minute. And we can look at their frame values. Let's look at the perspective. What perspective is at frame number 4, I want to see how the scene is going to look. Now, that black box on the screen, that is what is going to be seen in medium resolution mode, which is 352 by 440 on the Amiga when I render this. So both of those characters are indeed in the picture, and we have the frame number up at the right here. That's number 4. We can use the right arrow key and go to frame number 5 and see where they're going to be. Hit the right arrow key several times. We can kind of see how their motion's going to be. This is really going to be a neat piece of animation. Look how quickly it was to just set this once those characters and actions were already done. Alright, sometimes the disk has to go away when it's looking at the trying to find a particular frame that crosses boundaries. We can use the left arrow key to go backwards. Frame 10, frame 9, frame 8. See that pause at frame 10, that's because we said that the walk took 10 frames, so there was a boundary at 10. Okay, that's frame 6, and then we can also hit the space bar, and that will exit. One other thing in perspective, you can use the return key once you're in there to look at any particular frame that you want to. See, 4, I can look 40. And of course the computer's going to go away because I'm definitely crossing boundaries. And then it's going to come back and draw in frame 40. Now these guys at frame 40 are being clipped. Alright? One other thing I should mention, if the characters exceed the view plane, that means they get closer than the view plane, which sometimes actions will do that. A warning will come at the bottom of the screen which will say warning, view plane exceeded. Again, I hit the space bar to exit. Now the camera menu item will allow me to adjust the camera. Right now, I see the perspective. This is the view plane right here. So anything behind that view plane is going to be half size. And the farther back it goes in perspective, the smaller it gets. And this is the light source, there's the camera. And I can adjust that camera around just like I can when I'm adding nodes to a character. In fact, I'm going to add some nodes and make this camera go wherever I want. I'm going to add another one. Alright, so this is going to go from here to here to here. The first one, white, that's so I know where the camera's starting. I used to have not a different color, and I couldn't remember if it started in the back and went forward, or started forward and went backwards. Had to use a perspective menu item to find out. Now I can move these cameras around. Remember the highlighted one is orange, and the white one is the first one. So if I put this right at the view plane, that means it's going to be half size right there. Now I can also, here's the stage. We're looking at the top view of the stage, so I can swivel that stage around by depressing the right mouse button and moving it. And down at the bottom of the screen right here where it says roll, I can see the adjustment now. This is, I want to look at the back of those characters. There I'm looking at the back, and I can look at the side right here. I can look at the other side right here, okay? And I can do that at any node. So that node, and then over here I can adjust it. So let's look what we have now. The first node is there, second node is there, third node is there. That's how you adjust the stage. And then I hit the space bar to quit modifying. Alright, let's adjust the source. I depress the left mouse button and I move it back and forth. And notice how the light source is moving around on the screen. I'm adjusting it. It's also following the number down here. See, it's at 9 degrees and then it moves around. So the light's coming in from the side at 33 degrees. Now I can delete any of these nodes, just like right now the selected one's the orange camera right here. So let's delete it. Pop, it's gone, and then now that one becomes selected. I can modify. We already looked at that. We've looked at add. We can look at camera info. Look at all that information. Same information as if it was a node. Scale and the translation and all that kind of thing. I can look at the source info also. Same exact look. Roll and tilt. Swivel doesn't mean much to a light source, and neither does scale, but it's in there. Neither does translate, but it's in there just to make it consistent. All right. Now, some other things we can look at the front view. Notice how the icons for cameras have changed, and we can adjust it the same way. See, let's say I want to tilt down, look at the top of the characters. All right, there. I'm looking at the top now. I've tilted the stage, not the cameras. That confuses people sometimes because they think of the camera moving to the top of the stage, but actually we have a camera and we're out in the audience. We can move the camera anywhere we want in the audience, but we can't move it onto the stage. What we can do with this peculiar stage is tilt it down or tilt it up, look at the character's feet. Or we could look at the character's backs this way. You could fly by using this. Now, we could also adjust the camera around, and of course the light source. We could move the source up, so it's shining down. Okay, let's talk about the stage. Select the stage menu item. We have the light intensity and ambience. I normally set intensity and ambience at 50%. Always seems to come out with a good picture. Intensity at 100 and ambience at 0. Then I'd have very harsh lighting. Everything that was in shade would be black, and there would be a very deep degradation from brightness to blackness. Ambient value, what it does is it lightens up the shading and causes the gradation to be smooth. So what the intensity and ambience cause is harshness of the lighting. If I set ambience to 100%, then it wouldn't make any difference what I set intensity to, because 100% ambience means that there is light falling on everything at full brightness everywhere. You can play around with those two values and come up with some quite startling effects. Now, view plane and frames. This particular vignette apparently has 31 frames. It automatically computes the frame numbers. I can't change it. It looks for the longest action or node or action list or camera list, and it lists it here. The view plane, however, let's change that to 400. Notice how this vertical line here, which represents the half size mark, has moved. If I change that again to 600, that means the camera would have to be clear back to here before it made the objects in the scene be half the size that they are at the very front of the scene where it is now. So if I move the view plane closer, then as I move the camera back, things get smaller and smaller. So this is perspective. Let's go ahead and look at the perspective. Notice how the lines here, the sharpness has changed, so that this node right here, that character falls halfway on the screen and halfway off the screen. And let's look at perspective. Look at frame number 5. It's looking up frame number 5 now. See it listed up here in the right hand corner, and that character is indeed, his arms hanging off and he's off the screen. Now let's go back and change the view plane. View plane's very important. causes all the perspective and size change that you want to see. Just notice how the diagonal lines have changed for perspective. Perspective, same frame number 5, he's now on the screen. Boy, aren't you going to make good use of that. That is really a powerful tool. Another way I can change this perspective here, well, I'm not going to change the perspective so much as just how much I'm going to see in the viewing plane is modify this camera. Move it back here. So I'm behind that line, everything ought to be at least half size. So let's take a look. I notice how that's really changed. Frame 5. And indeed, everything changed half size. Here's something, background. This is how you select what color register 0 is going to be. Now remember, register 0 is what's replaced by the gen lock, and the way that these animations have backgrounds drawn to them is with a gen lock, and it takes whatever's in register 0 and replaces it with a secondary video source, which you would have hooked to a camera pointed at Smurfs homes or something. Right here is I adjust the color of what that backdrop is going to be, that register 0. Now this doesn't really mean anything except if you're not going to use a backdrop, you're not going to use a background that's gen locked on, then you might want to select a color, or maybe a anti-alias routine requires that the background color be as close as possible to whatever is going to be gen locked on the background. The number down here, CEA, is what we started with, and the number at the top, 8CD, that's what I'm changing. Notice how it's changing. Now it's 810. So I can always get back to CEA just by adjusting. So this is how you keep track of what you had. At the action list, I can enable any node in this particular skit for this character and see the action list for the entire character. The action list is 3 full steps or walks, and they're 10 frames apiece, so he's walking pretty quickly for a total of 30. And I can highlight any one of these to become selected, and let's add a walk or add whatever's on the disc. This is how you would string a skit together. If I had opening the refrigerator door, doing jumping jacks, whatever. Right now all that's on there is walk, because this is the same data disk as you have. Now the default number of frames to do a full step is 28. That's how it was defined, and we're going to change the speed so it'll be faster to 10. We could add another action. We can modify the selected action, change it to 12 for example. We can delete, and the one that's selected, which is the same one we're working on, will be removed. Notice how the total over here will reflect our changes.
Now, Animator Apprentice has a feature that shows up in Director that can really get you, either save your life or get you so confused you know what's going on. And that feature is called substitution of figures. Now, a character, I usually say that character is me as a biped, okay? But that's not really a character. Oh, another term, figure. When you create a biped in the character program, what you're really creating is a figure. Because when I create a head in the character program, it doesn't have a body attached to it, it's just a head. And it has a jaw, and it's all articulated, it has all these pieces, eyelids and eyes and all these kinds of things. But that head isn't connected to a body. And that body, when I defined it, I didn't have an articulated head. I just might have had a bone that was just the, just the bone, and I had a mannequin's head stuck on there, but I couldn't make the head talk. Well, we're coming across some really hairy stuff here. See, if I had defined that biped with an articulated head, then when I made an action for that biped, I'd have to define how that biped talked. And if I said a different word while I was walking, let's say I'm walking, and I say the word hello, and I put that in as an action, that's different from walking, the same walk, saying the word goodbye, and I'd have to have an action for every conceivable combination you can imagine. Well, that ain't going to work. So how do you fix it? Well, the way you fix it is with substitution. And the way it works is you copy a figure over to your disk that has a bone called head. Then you copy another figure whose name is head, okay? whose name is head, and it's fully articulated, you copy that over to the disk too. So now you have two figures on the disk. One of them, let's say, is called man, and he has a segment called head, and one of them is a head. That's another figure. Well, that head segment for the man, who's the biped, who's not articulated, that head is not articulated, is substituted. The articulated head is substituted wherever that head would have been. Okay? So now you can just put these things together. You can have the walking, and you can have the head, articulated head, doing something totally different, saying all kinds of words. And you can bring them off a library disk and mix and match any way you want. Similarly, you could substitute, you could have a man walking, and his left arm wants to go do something different. So you use the walk action, and you have one of the segments called left arm, and you have a figure called left arm, and it substitutes automatically. Now, you're going to see this in Director. The reason you're going to see it in Director because that's where it decides on whether or not that character is composed of multiple figures. As it reads in a character, it looks to see if any of the segments have the same name as another figure on the disk. And if so, then it substitutes whatever was going to be there, like a head bone, with a fully articulated head figure. And so a character can be a whole hierarchy of figures. In fact, you know, you could really get outrageous here, and you could have the arm, and then the arm has this hand that's substituted, and the hand has a finger that's substituted. And this stuff I haven't tested, so if you do it and find a bug, call me, and I'll say, what are you doing? Okay? But it's a good concept, it's a strong concept, it's very, very powerful. Let's underline that. Very, very powerful. And you're going to want to learn it. I don't want you to learn it today, because what's going to happen is you're going to design things, and you're just going to learn a little tiny bit to begin with. You're just going to learn a little bit. And then you're going to get creative. And you're going to find out that your knowledge of how to run the program doesn't match what you want to do. And so you have to learn a little bit more. But that's okay, because you already have a foundation to build on, because you got the other down pat. And then pretty soon you want to do something else, because your creativity is even expanding more. You recognize the possibilities, and so you have to learn a little bit more. Pretty soon you're going to know the whole manual inside and out, and you're going to call on me to add even more complicated features. And believe me, you're going to want these things. So don't let, I keep saying this, don't let the complexity on the onset of this thing prevent you from being your most creative. Just start small. Just start with some of the default characters and figures and light sources and all that kind of thing, and then move on from there as your creativity overloads your knowledge. Actions. I have an action that I call walk, and that might be a misnomer, because I don't really have walk. I have step. A full step, okay? I mean, his left foot goes forward, his arm swing, and his right foot goes forward. And I string those steps together, and I get walk. Maybe I should have called that action step. And then you would have known it was only one full step. But I called it walk because it seemed more natural at the time. There's lots of things like that. Running, same thing. One full step, left foot, right foot, arms, and you string those things together. Now, when you're in the Director program and you want a man to walk, you put walk, 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 like that in a row. And if you want him to walk fast, when the walk comes up, it'll say that it took 28 frames to initially define this step. You can say 10. You can type a 10 in there. And now the walk, what used to take 28 frames, is going to take 10 frames. And if you string those together, you could have him walk much faster than he was originally designed, and it'll look fine. It'll look just natural because of the interpolation. There's that word again, interpolation. Interpolation. That makes characters who have actions defined at a predetermined speed walk at any speed you want, slower or faster. In fact, you could have one step with 10, one step with 12, one step with 15. I'm not sure how that would look, but it would probably look kind of, you know, I don't know how it would look. Probably look pretty good. You ought to try these things. There's lots of things to be tried.
To demonstrate a node list, I'm going to load the Smurf vignette, which is one of the demos. And in this demo, the Smurf simply walks in place while the camera moves around the body. Now, the Smurf is a good example because the Smurf is one character composed of 4 figures. The Smurf body, the Smurf head, and the left and right hands. If I select the Smurf, as you can see, there's no absolute motion. The Smurf just sits right here the entire time of the demo. But let's just take a look at camera. Notice how the camera is moving all over the place, even though the Smurf stays the same. and there's an example of the stage moving. See, he's looking down top of the Smurf's head in that frame. So, let's look at the, if I select the next menu item, I get Smurf left hand, Smurf right hand, Smurf head. So I'm looking at each figure individually. Actually, I'm selecting them. I can use the F10 key and cycle through those also. Okay, let's look at Smurf head. Node list of Smurf head says that the Smurf will tilt his head down for 10 frames and then tilt it back up for 10 frames for a total of 20 frames. And you can add, modify, delete, or quit. If I wanted to scale the size of the Smurf's head, maybe it was too big, I want to put on a smaller body, I'd do it right here. That was a good example of absolute motion. This would be a good chance to explain the difference between absolute motion and relative motion. The action list for the Smurf. This would be a good chance to explain the difference between absolute motion and relative motion. If I select the Smurf and I look at the action list, I see that there's 3 steps that are taken, 30 frames. We don't know what direction. We don't know what point the steps start and stop. All we know is relatively they walk at 10 frames, there's going to be a full step, and there's going to be 3 of them, so it's relative. Now, absolutely, where we're going to go on the stage, I can see the one node here is where the Smurf's going to start, and then 15 frames later he's going to be here, and then 15 frames later he's going to be here. So I know that those 3 steps took 30 frames, and it takes a total of 30 frames to go that whole path there, 15 up and 15 back. So the Smurf on the stage will start it here and end here and take 3 big steps to get there. Take a look at the rehearsal module. Now you usually will go from director to rehearsal a couple of times before everything looks just right. You can use the perspective in director to make sure that all the frames are going to be on and inside the cell, and then you can look at rehearsal to make sure the speed is right and things are moving you expect them to. So we'll look at the walk. Rehearsal is extremely easy. Now screen will turn yellow for several moments while the computer is crunching in these values. It has to play them back at real time, so it takes some time at the front end to compute where everything is going to be each frame, and then it's going to play it back for us. Okay, you can see it playing it back, and it starts out at 12 frames per second, and the box on the screen is what you'll see on the monitor. Frame number is displayed at the top. I can control the speed with the functioning keys at the top, just like in Audition. I can stop it, step through, start with the right mouse button, increase it. That was 20 frames a second. Now I'm at 15 frames a second, 12 frames a second, and the space bar exits. That's all there is to rehearsal. Let's look at display. Display hopefully will be a universal program used by all the animation vendors, and the keys will all be the same thing. If I have anything to do with it, it will be like that anyway. I'm going to put the Smurf demo in. This is the 4096 color Smurf demo. This means shaded, and pack means it'll play back. And there's 4096 colors. If there were fewer colors, it would say how many there are. You slide the slider around to select what you want. If there's more than one page, you can use the arrow keys to select new pages, and then you load. Now there's going to be time depending on your disk load speed of the Smurf being loaded. We cut out all the load time, and we see the Smurf moving. Now the default is 12 frames per second, but this particular piece of animation, since it does so much, probably is only playing back at 8 frames per second. I can slow it down, as you can see, but I can't really speed it up much faster than it was going. The F1, F2, F3, F4, F5 keys, etc. across the top control the speed, and some animations will run a lot faster than others. I can put the frame number and copyright notice with the return key and remove it with the return key. I can change the direction with the left and right arrow keys. I can stop it with the left mouse button and click it forward. Put the frame number on. The right mouse button clicks it backwards. The spacebar continues the continuous motion, and the escape key exits. Let's look at another example. This is the walk, the famous walk, and we have two of them on this disc. We have the flat mode, which is the Saturday morning look, and it's packed, and there's 32 colors, and we have the shaded walk. So let's look at the shaded walk, and of course it's going to take its own sweet time to load. This one runs a little faster. It's running at 12 frames per second now. Speed it up to 15, 20. Looks like that's about as fast as it's going to go, about 15. If it was the 32 color one, it would of course run faster. And then I can change the direction and all that kind of thing, and hit the escape to exit. Let's look at the record module. It's very simple. There's a series of questions that we'll walk through. First, it wants to know whether we want it packed so we can play it back, or saved as single frames, IFF. Now you can get 60 or so packed frames on a disc, depending on the size of the animation, of course. You can only get about 20 IFF frames, but then you can call those back with a paint program like Deluxe Paint 2 that can handle overscanned images, ham or other colors. For view, we can just take a look and view a particular frame, any frame we want. Let's say we go for pack, ask for a data disk. We're going to insert the data disk that comes with Apprentice. Famous walk again. It's going to ask for the frame range. We're going to say 30. And shading, true or false. We'll say true. And how many colors. And then we can save it ham or any of the standard colors of the Amiga. If we say 8, then this will be a shaded image that is rendered in 8 colors. So there's going to be about a 4-minute wait, and we'll pause for that. Okay, it's drawing our shaded walking guy in 8 colors. Actually did a pretty good job of color selection, considering there was only 8 of them. Asking me to put in a frames disk so that it can save the vignette onto a frames disk. If you only have a single drive, then this is going to ask you this. It's going to ask you to change the data disk and the frames disk on every frame, so you have to sit there and attend it. If you have 2 drives, then you don't have to attend it. Once you put the frames disk in, which you could have put in already, you don't have to wait for this to come up. You could have stuck it in at any time. Then it'll save to it. Apprentice puts out 2 different kinds of animation, irrespective of the number of colors. One is called flat mode, which is what we're looking at now, and shaded. And as you can see, flat mode has no shading. There's no dimensionality to the character, even though it is still a 3D character. Now this is selectable at record time using the shading true or false selector. Now flat mode, because there is no dimensionality, it looks flat even though the character is still 3D. Notice how it turns sideways. The profile of the nose remains intact. There's a lot of use for this kind of animation. It's the more traditional Saturday morning kind, another term for it, Saturday morning animation. You may find a particular audience for it. You can simply switch a vignette to this kind of animation or your other shaded kind and select any number of colors.
Things to be tried. I'm a programmer. I'm also creative, but every time I get designing a new character, designing a new thing, if it's not for a demo, I keep thinking to myself, well, I could be spending this time writing another feature for one of my customers that just called me yesterday. So it's up to you. It's up to you to exploit these things. If you find a bug, call me. Hopefully I've got the bugs out, but people call me with bugs I should have found a long time ago, and I simply had never tried that. I think them up, I provide the flexibility, but until you exploit all of these things that I've built into it, I'm never going to know. But let's talk one thing here. This program is powerful. This program is what you want. This program is going to allow you to do entire half-hour cartoons or dramas. You could do a drama. I'm going to try to increase the resolution, try to increase the aliasing as computers get bigger. In 1995, you're going to be using this package running on whatever computer the company puts out then, you know, if they're still around or whoever. This program will be ported to other machines such as the IBM and the Atari ST, Blue, Hiss, and some other of the devices. So, stay with Animator Apprentice and you'll stay on the train. Learn Animator Apprentice, you won't have to learn another package because this package provides it all. I want to say we've had a good time here together today. Now, I'm going to go have a few beers and get over the jitters that I have talking into this glass camera here. You are going to be going back to Animator Apprentice now that you're so excited, you're ready to go. You're going to do Johnny Quest. Remember Johnny Quest? Boy, I love Johnny Quest. You're going to be doing Johnny Quest, you know, tomorrow. And you're going to be calling me because you're going to have some problems. Or you're going to be rewatching this tape so that you can get the technical things worked out. Oh, I don't know what you're going to be doing. I like to talk to people. I even like talking to you this way. And I hope this has been a lot of help. And if you think it's been a lot of help, call me because I'll have one done a little more professionally than this. I'll actually might even hire somebody who can speak better than I can. They'll never know the program better than I can. But, you know, you want my pretty face, you want somebody who, maybe I could get some real good-looking gal to do it. You know, give me a call. Let me know what you think. And it's been good talking to you.